ثلاثة اثنان واحد.
This is my favorite time of the year.
Sunnah followers.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Please join us for a new program, Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, brought to you by Dr. Ali. Reflections on Ramadan, followed by questions. Please join us Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on SunnahFollowers, streaming on all major platforms. Channel SunnahFollowers.
With the beginning of the Quran. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Okay, so right from the very beginning, there's an important caveat here that we have to take from the Quran, right from the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah. This is the book. Okay, there's no book like it. There is no book in comparison to this book, the Quran, and there is no doubt in it. It is a guidance for the people of taqwa. So what important guideline do we take out of this ayah that is going to apply to us in Ramadan, outside of Ramadan as well? But as most of us are trying to extract more benefit from the Quran these days than we normally do, maybe at the rest of the year, what is something very, very critical that we have to take from this ayah, from this noble ayah? Who can answer? And if you guys are eating, I will get the message. All right, so it looks like probably you guys are eating and unable to respond, which is
Brother, doctors, repeat it again. I was praying, so repeat the ayat again.
Oh, mashallah. May Allah accept. So we have the ayah, the very beginning of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book, there is no doubt in it, and it is a guidance for the people of taqwa. So here, if we want to benefit from the Quran, if we want to come out of this Ramadan successful and having benefited from Ramadan, what do we need to understand from this ayah?
We need to understand that that is the book that Allah gave to us. Those words are strictly from Allah, yes. No other books exist. Only that one. Whatever is good in the other books that Allah sent down, it's all in this one book. And this one book is for all of mankind. It's not just for Muslims, it's for all of mankind and jinn.
But if you understand that, even if you understand that, you still are not going to get the benefit. Why? Because we want to get to that last part, and this is the part that a lot of people, they overlook. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It is a guidance for the people of taqwa. In order for us to take the guidance from this Quran, we have to approach it a specific way. So there are people who approach the Quran. For example, you might go to the university in your city, wherever you live, and there is a PhD professor who is teaching collegiate Islam. Okay, he's teaching Islam 101 or 201 or 401 or whatever. Okay, and he's not Muslim. Okay, but he is supposed to be an expert on Islam, but he's not a Muslim. Okay, so you can talk to him about the Quran and he can answer you from the Quran. He knows the Quran. So how is it that this person studied the Quran and he's a PhD, but he's not Muslim? Because of his approach to that book. So he approaches the Quran as literature. Okay, he approaches it as a great book of literature, a great book of poetry. Okay, and so there are people that they're very knowledgeable in the Quran, but it doesn't translate into guidance because they did not follow this important caveat, which is it is a guidance for the people of taqwa.
Yes.
So when you know that Allah Azza wa Jal, okay, that He is your Lord and He is your Creator, and that you have an obligation to protect yourself from His punishment. This is the taqwa. This is the taqwa that we are trying to obtain in Ramadan, right? And so Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. That fasting has been prescribed for you like it was prescribed for those before you, so that you might attain taqwa. And taqwa is, again, what it is to obey Allah in that which He has commanded, and it is to avoid that which He has forbidden, with the intention of protecting yourself from His punishment. And so, if we don't approach the Quran in this way, okay, that we don't uh, that we don't approach it as develop or trying to develop taqwa, then this is where the problem is. Okay, and this is now do Muslims today would say, okay, well, how about a Muslim? And so Muslims right now in Ramadan, how many Muslims are approaching the Quran with the basis of taqwa? A lot of people right now are interested in reading the Quran to get barakah, to get blessing. Okay, or some people they have as Al-Hasan al-Basri radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, one of the great tabi'een. He said, how are you going to benefit from the Quran if your only objective is to get to the bottom of the page? And that's what a lot of people are right now, right? They're not reading the Quran to benefit from it. They're not reading the Quran to raise their taqwa. They're not reading the Quran in order to understand how is it that I can worship Allah better. Okay, they're reading the Quran to say, I read the Quran. So that when they're sitting and chit-chatting after Ramadan and people are talking and say, oh, alhamdulillah, I made khatam this year. Okay, I finished the Quran. I finished the Quran cover to cover. And that's it. That's what they wanted to, that's the goal. Okay, or the goal is, I want my house to be blessed. I read Quran. Or I want a blessing in, in this matter or in that matter, or to bless my relationship, or to bless my business decision, or whatever. If we are approaching the Quran from that standpoint, then we don't get the guidance. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
And this is where you can see how a lot of people they just fly right over that. Okay, instead of stopping and reflecting on it and saying, okay, why is it that my life doesn't change? Okay, or I go through Ramadan every year and I come out of Ramadan and it's the same story. Okay, how many for those of you who are attending to the masjid, you see the masjid swell. Okay, during Ramadan, people, and I'm not talking just about iftar time. Yeah, there are people who come just for the free food, but I'm talking about people that come for Fajr, people that come for Dhuhr, people that come for Asr, that you don't see them the rest of the year, and they come during this time. So these people, especially, have to ask themselves, why is this happening? Why am I impacted by the Quran, now, but I'm not impacted the rest of the year? And so, and this is a lot of this is the approach. And so, one of the first things we have to do is we have to stop and we have to start reading the Quran properly, meaning that I want to read it with understanding and application. This Quran was sent to me, okay? That's the mentality you have to have. This Quran was sent to me. The message in the Quran is for me. It's not for somebody else. It's not for my neighbor. It's not from the other guy in the masjid who's praying next to me. It's not for the people in another country. It's for me. This Quran is for me. So when you're reading it, you are reading the words of Allah spoken directly to you. So when we look at it that way, and we look at, say, okay, Allah just told me to do this. Am I doing it? Am I implementing this in my life? Am I acting upon this in my life? And that is the question that we have to go through every so as we're going through it. Ask yourself if you're interacting with the Quran. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, for example, fastaghfirullah. Okay, so in Surah An-Nisa, seek Allah's forgiveness. So when you pass over that ayah, what do? Again, most people, they don't do anything. They just keep reading. But you have a command from Allah. So what should you do?
Ask Allah for forgiveness right there.
Exactly. Stop and ask Allah for forgiveness. Fas'alullah min fadli. Okay, ask Allah from His favor. Stop and ask Allah for His favor. Yes. Interact with the Quran this way. You have to be interacting with it. It can't just be, again, a dry reading that I'm just reading the Quran and I don't have any, connection to the words that are being said. No, it has to be that there's this interaction. There's this, that you're living it. as the Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, when she was asked by the Prophet, by the people, they said, tell us about the nature of the Prophet ﷺ or his behavior. And she said, كان خلقه القرآن, that his nature or his behavior was the Quran. He was putting the Quran, he was giving life to the Quran in his behavior. And this is when we're doing that, okay? What do you think is going to happen if we're starting to live the Quran? The Quran becomes a part of us, and it's expressed, its words are expressed in our actions. What are some of the outcomes of that?
Our hearts being healed.
Okay, our hearts are being healed. Okay, the healing of the heart. No, it's a good statement. You're right, but we say things like that, and then people don't understand. Okay, and sometimes we don't understand what we're saying. So, what does that mean, practically speaking? Break it down to me. I'm a very simple person, and I want to understand. Okay, the heart being healed. What does that mean?
So I know for me, it helps me to deal with personal situations, like situations in my relationships, dealing with previous traumas and things like that. When I read to understand the Quran, it helps me to, when I say healing, like those childhood traumas, those things that I've been through in my past and the present things, it assists me in living, it assists me in living on a daily basis. It helps me to deal with issues that a lot of issues that I've had with my heart.
Yes. Beautiful. That's excellent. Yes, go ahead, sister.
And I'm enlightened. I'm enlightened to a point that I really understand Allah is real. He's there for me. And because of that, I have someone to turn to, whereas I can't turn to anyone else. Allah is everything. He gives me everything. SubhanAllah.
Alhamdulillah. Good. What else? Anybody else?
I would say personally, it's the beginning of transformation, because as I'm reading, I'm reflecting. As I'm reflecting, I'm analyzing myself. And as I'm analyzing myself, if I've done something wrong, I'm asking Allah for forgiveness and being aware of that. And at the same time, being aware of that, I'm also telling myself, if I did something wrong, I need to change it. So that keeps me keep engaged with the Quran, because I need the next step, because it's our manual,
Yes.
I need the next step to keep on building. So that's how I take it.
I love the word that you used, transformation. This word transformation that you used, this is a beautiful, beautiful word, mashallah. And this is where we find ourselves lacking, okay? Because the Quran was given to us, Islam was given to us to make us different, right? And so the Muslim should be apparent. It should be not blending in, not lost in the crowd. It should be very, very apparent, all right? And so when you are implementing the Quran, it has this effect. It creates an aura around you of change, okay? You are going to change yourself first, but that change is so powerful, it ripples and it causes a change in your environment. And this is the thing that we need to see more of, is that we're not seeing that. We're not seeing this type of change in society or in community. And that's how we know that we're not implementing the Quran. There isn't that transformation. And that's why I love that word, transformation, that there has to be this big difference. So somebody that sees you, today, and they knew you 5 years ago, what you need them to say is that you're a completely different person, and in a positive way. That you're so different. You used to never do these things, and now look at you. You're so successful. You're so disciplined. You're so timely. You're so polite. You're so eloquent. You look at someone like, take it for example, Malcolm X. Okay, look at Malcolm X. Look at the pre-prison Malcolm X, and look at the post-prison Malcolm X. They're completely different human beings, right?
Yes.
Completely different.
Yes.
They're just, you can't compare them at all. They're just two separate people, okay? And what was the impact? What did that? That was the Quran. That was Islam. And that's the thing, is that's what I want you guys to, again, part of that reflection is to reflect back and say, okay, this is me. Open a picture in your phone or something. Again, oh, this is me 5 years ago. Okay, now what's changed about me today? What am I different at? What am I better at? Okay, and that's very important. When you allow the Quran to fill you, to go inside of you, it's going to do that. Just like Malcolm X, it's going to create that radical transformation in the person that makes them such a beautiful, better human being altogether. Okay, such a more devout, more pious person, and that's the goal that we have to be setting. A lot of times we don't. When they talk about goal setting, so we look at just sociology. They talk about, okay, if you want to achieve a goal, so you start your day. Okay, most of us, we start our day and we don't have any goal in mind. We don't have any to-do list. We don't have any objective for the day. We just kind of go into our day and we just go and get up and eat and go to work and just go through the day. And we find that every day is the same as the next. Okay, we don't have that objective. And so the same thing has to happen Islamically, is that, okay, where do I need to go? Okay, you know what? Right now, I'm using words, okay? Even if I don't use them a lot, okay? Maybe I use them 5 times a week, okay? But these words are not consistent with being a Muslim. This is the impact of me being around, foul-mouthed human beings at work or where I live or what have you, and I get affected by that, and these words come out of my mouth. And so next year, I don't want to have that at all. I don't want it to be 5 times a week. I want it to be 0 times per year. Okay. So this is my objective. I have specific objectives that I want to get to. I want to have memorized this component. I want to increase this, to make this salah as part of my life. I want to make this amount of recitation a part of my day. I want to make this amount of remembrance of Allah a part of my day every day. So there is this goal, there is this, and see, okay, how is this going to transform me? How is this going to allow me to interact with my neighbors, for example, to interact with my coworkers? And so it's sad that sometimes a person will go to work and they'll be working in this place for like 5 years and nobody will even know they're Muslim. Okay, because when they excuse themselves, to go pray, okay, if they pray, then they're telling them, oh, I just need to take a break. Okay, what's wrong with telling people that you want to pray? What's wrong with sharing that with people and opening those doors? And so that's part of this is what we're trying to look for. Okay, I want to come back to, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who's speaking or who said it, but the person who said, helping to heal the heart, dealing with trauma. So what is something from the Quran that helps you understand or helps you deal with trauma, deal with personal trauma or childhood trauma or something like that? Explain to me how the Quran impacts you in that regards.
Ania or Geechee, one of you.
Yeah, that was me, Juania. One thing that's helped me is being mindful that Allah says that for His believers that we shall not fear or grieve. So for me, that helps me to understand that the things that I went through, excuse me, or things that we went through, is not a loss, and
Okay.
that.
Okay, tell to me this way. Okay, I'm coming to you. Okay, I'm gonna I want to, and this is very important. This is something we don't do enough of. We do the one-sided lectures and we don't do the conversations. Okay, so Ania, I'm coming to you, and I want you to help me. I'm gonna so my name is Adi. I'm coming to you right now. I'm saying, Sister Wania, I'm trying to be a good Muslim, but I can't do it because I hate God. Okay, I absolutely hate God because of I don't understand how God could be this all powerful, this merciful being. When He allowed me to be hurt as a child. I was molested as a child. I had severe childhood trauma from somebody that was close to me in my life, and I just nothing I do helps me get over that. So how would you answer that to me? That's a hard one, I know.
It is. Like it's hard, but it's not. It's
Good.
like it's in there because it's in me because I went through some of those things. So
Right.
the Quran helped me to personally work on it. It's like it's a daily thing, like to help me to understand that. Yeah, I can't even explain it. Like
You're doing very
I
well.
just
Keep going. Don't lose confidence in yourself. You're doing well.
okay. So I'll just tell you a little bit about what I did. I can only give someone my own personal experience. So for the things that
Okay.
I went through personally, things that have helped me is understanding that I have this understanding that everything that I went through was actually for a reason. Now I know telling that to somebody else is like, what? I've been
Yes.
through this and I've been through that, and and all of these different things. Um, but for me, I'm a different kind of person. So it's like for me to hear that everything happens for a reason, and because I've worked on changing my perspective, um, it's a little bit easier for me
Good
to take
word.
that.
I like that word. Good word.
Yeah,
Perspective. So
it's a
so
little
talk
bit
more about
easier
that.
for me to change that. So whereas though, let's say if I had an issue with my parent, I can use just it's looking at excuse me, I've done a lot of self work through cognitive behavioral therapy and all these different things, but not until the
Yes.
Quran did I actually have a better. I'm a new Shehata, so
MashaAllah.
do I
MashaAllah.
actually have a better and a different understanding? It's like to fear, you can't fear in, as being a Muslim. You should only fear Allah. So me having
Yes.
that understanding, I use that. The way I may do things may not be the way other people may do them. I don't fully know how to explain it yet. I
Mhm.
wish that I could, but I know that every single thing in that Quran that Allah has revealed to me in Allah's timing has helped me to heal, has helped me to
Good.
have an understanding that that I should not grieve losses, that if someone passed away, that there was there's a possibility of Jannah for them, that there's better. It with any kind of abuse, that I can ask for Allah to forgive that person and for Allah to actually forgive me. I may not understand everything that everybody has done to me, but it's not really my place to even, I'm learning that it's not even my place to understand that, but that I can go to Allah, and Allah is my best friend. So while I can't fully explain it, it's so hard for me to explain it, but I tell you one thing, every single time I go into that Quran and I open it and I read it, it deals with me. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like a spanking
Mhm.
and a healing at the same time if I'm willing to like Geechee was saying, if I'm willing to transform, if I'm willing to do that. So
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer your question because
No, you've
I
answered
don't
it very
know how
well.
to articulate it properly, but this is,
You've answered very well.
I
You
still
did.
fumble through it, but
No, no. I'm
every
going to
single
help
day
you.
it's a change for me.
MashaAllah. I'm going to help give you some. I'm going to fill in some of the gaps that you have.
Okay.
You did a great job. This is and you mentioned, so you guys, again, a lot of times a word, it can cover a great deal of ground. And so you talked about perspective. And so a lot of times what we're missing is the perspective. And so a lot of times we get our blinders on and we say, why did this happen? This was a bad thing. Okay. And so what we don't realize is, okay, so sometimes, something happens to you and it does seem bad. Okay. But the outcome of that, and this is what's beautiful, and this is the thing that it does take time to understand. Okay. So you can take it on faith right now if you're very young, but you will probably understand it as you get older. And so some of the people who are in the room, You guys can let me know if I'm wrong on this, but those of you who are a little bit wiser, a little bit, have a few more years under your belt, you will probably be able to say, now I understand, okay? Whereas maybe when we're younger, we say we don't understand, like why did this have to happen? And then all of a sudden you get to the other side and you're like, oh, okay, that's why it happened. As an example, okay, I remember that something happened to me particularly. All right, that I went through a very, very, very difficult period of time, about 5 or 6 years, and it truly was torturous. Okay, to the point that I was having recurring nightmares about it. It's something that was very terrifying to me, very terrifying to my family. Um, my mother was, I believe it took years off of her life, what was happening to me. She was really, affected by that, in addition to my wife and, of course, myself. And so while I was going through it, I kept asking myself, why, what did, again, the question a lot of people say is, oh Allah, why are you putting me through this? What did I do wrong? That's the question we always have, right? We always feel like this is some sort of punishment, and it's not always that way. So what happened is, through this difficult period of time, I got to the point where I said, you know what? I think I need to change my environment. I need to go to a different place. And at that time, I applied for a new job, and I took a job overseas. I went to Saudi Arabia. I lived in Saudi Arabia for 9 years. My kids, I raised all of my kids, basically through their toughest years in a very pure, clean Muslim environment, a very safe place, a very safe country where we didn't have to worry about locking doors. I tell people the story a lot, that once I came home from work and I was really, really, really tired, and I left my car door wide open, and I went into the house and I went to sleep. And when I woke up many hours later, I was like, had this funny feeling. I was like, feel like I left the car open or something with the car. Like I had this like nagging thought, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go out and look. And I go out to the street. The car is in the street, and the door is wide open. Okay, just like I left it. And 7 hours, went by, and I'm sure hundreds of cars drove by my car with the door wide open, and nothing happened. And that couldn't happen for 5 minutes in many cities in the United States. That couldn't happen for an hour in most countries in the world. Okay, but it happened for 7 hours over there. So the benefit that my children took, the benefit that my wife took, the benefit that I took, and I remember going around the Kaaba in Mecca with my son, and just stopping at that moment and thinking, I was like, I would have never dreamed of this moment happening, to be making tawaf around the Kaaba with my son, who at that time was 9 years old or something like that, or 10 years old when we went, and to be going to Mecca multiple times with my family. It was such a and none of that would have happened. Okay, and I always tell people, those were the best 9 years of my life. Um, and there's so many things that we were able to do as a family, so much personal growth that happened to me, so many opportunities for doing good, for feeding people, for helping Muslims, for just doing all sorts of good deeds. Just nothing like it in my whole life. Okay, and that would have never happened ever had I not gone through what I went through. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it absolutely does. I can relate to some of that. Yeah, I understand.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, so there is the devil inside will tell us, well, you could have just gone to Saudi Arabia, right? You didn't have to go through this misery, right? But no, you wouldn't, because you would have never had the idea. You would have kept thinking, oh, I'm good, life is good, I'm happy, everything's working out. Why change, right? Why fix it if it ain't broke? And so a lot of times it is broke, and we don't realize it's broke, and then you got to go through something like that. And so when there's a very interesting thing that Ahmadiyyat, those of you that are a little bit new to Islam, you might not know that name. Ahmadiyyat is rahmatullah alayhi. He's passed away now, but he was a wonderful, wonderful speaker, a great scholar of the Bible, who was a Muslim. He did a lot of comparative religious work where he kind of read through the Bible, and he would debate and talk with Christians and be able to kind of give them a different perspective on stuff they were reading. So I remember Ahmadiyyat, talking about an issue like this, where when he was talking a similar kind of concept, would you be where you are today had you not gone through difficulties? And one of the things that he was talking about, which was interesting to me, is that Christians often talk about, the misery that Jesus went through on the cross. Okay, so of course, as Muslims, we don't believe that. We don't believe that Allah allowed Jesus to be put on a cross or to be nailed to the cross or anything like that. But the Christians will talk about, this great deal of suffering that he went through for us because he loves us so much, and he wanted our sins to be forgiven, that he allowed himself to be nailed to the cross. Okay, and then there's this part of the Bible where it says that that Jesus complained and he said, oh God, why did you allow this to happen to me? Okay, what did I do? Okay, it's the same human idea of what did I do to deserve this, right? And so Ahmadiyyat was talking about, and he said, did he really suffer? Okay, let's say for a moment, hypothetically speaking, we say that this did happen. Okay, he actually brought up something that is a festival that happens in the Philippines, I believe it is, and probably elsewhere, where people reenact the crucifixion every single year, and it's actually an honor to be chosen, okay, to play the part of Jesus, and they actually truly physically, it's not special effects or something like that. It's not pretend. They do it for real. They actually nail these people to a cross. Okay, they literally take a long nail and they put it through their wrists and they put it through their ankles, and they put it through their wrists first, and they have to walk through the street in the Philippines, and people are throwing things at them and cursing them and so forth, and then they go to the place where the cross is being put up, and then they nail their ankles to it, and that becomes a badge of honor for them for the rest of their life. And so these people are not up there saying, oh God, why did you do this to me? They're like, oh, I'm so lucky that this happened to me. And so one of the questions that came up was, if you knew, okay, if I came to you, if an angel came to any one of you, okay, and said, you know what, Anisa or Habiba, you know what, you're going to have to go through a really, really, really horrible experience, but because of the horrible experience that you're going to go through, your family, nobody else, just your family is going to be saved. Your family is going to be fine. Would you say no?
Actually, I've kind of been there, and I would not have said no. I would have said yes, because that was my belief at that time.
Exactly. Right. And that's the whole thing, is that and to be quite honest with you, we do that all the time, right? People are doing that every single day in the world that we live in today. There's a lot of mothers and fathers that sacrifice everything, okay, just so their kids will, be able to live in a house or to, have 3 meals a day, right? And they're going through a lot of suffering on their own, okay? And that's just to save their family. This isn't trying to save all of mankind. So this is the thing that, when you have, and so go back to when you're talking about perspective, okay? If you were to go back, okay, to that traumatic experience that you went through, and someone whispered in your ear, okay, with your permission, I'm going to allow this bad thing to happen to you, but because of this bad thing that happens to you, you're going to become such a strong person that you are literally going to impact the lives of tens, if not hundreds of people for the rest of your life. Okay? Would that have changed how you went through that experience? And that's the reality, is that's what it is. You have gone through that experience. And so now when somebody comes to you and says, you know what, I went through this difficulty and my life has been, so devastated, you're going to tell them, well, why? Why are you devastated? Okay? It doesn't have to be that way. Why did you take that road? there is another road which I took, okay? And that road is the road of perspective. And the way that I see it is that this terrible thing, it is terrible. It should not happen to people. I don't want it to happen to people. But if it does happen to a person, you know what? There is always that silver lining. And you know what? It does sometimes wake us up to consider things that we would have never considered. And so that I hope that helps fill in some of the gaps, Winia, of those statements.
Yes, it actually does. The funny thing is I do motivational speaking at different times during the year, and I have the conversation. That is pretty much what I tell people. I just have becoming a new Muslim, explaining things in a, like you explained it, and you just use the word perspective, right?
Yeah.
So before I would explain it and I would use the word perspective, and I actually stopped doing a lot of things that I used to do. I was actually had a huge following and all these different things. But when I became Muslim, I stopped a lot of it because I wasn't sure of how to explain it and how to do it as a Muslim. I'm just getting back into it. I just went to a youth organization where I live and asked them if I can volunteer to speak. And alhamdulillah, just like I mentioned before, Allah helps with everything. Allah is so awesome.
Yes.
And this just helped me so much. Just when I'm going to be building a program for these kids.
See that there is a plan. There is a plan behind everything. So I remember, and we fall into it, and that's the whole thing. There's a beautiful dua in the Arabic language, which is Allahumma stakhdimna wa la tastabdilna, which means, oh Allah, use us for your purpose and do not exchange us for others. And this comes from the ayah in the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, that Allah can change you, okay, exchange you for. So if you're not living up to the mission, okay, then Allah will bring others who He loves and they love Him, who will gladly fulfill that role if you don't want to fulfill the role. And so this is that usage, okay? And so when you're one of those people that you're coming in and you're obviously probably taking the role of somebody else that didn't want to do those things, and so that's what we ask. We ask Allah to make us of benefit, to make us useful, and so sometimes to come to your point, okay, can I say things and maybe I don't have the Islamic terminology in there. I don't use I'm not mentioning Quran or Hadith, okay, specifically. Yes, you can, absolutely. Why not? Because people are looking at you and they're looking at a Muslim, okay, and they know that you're a Muslim, and so then they're saying, okay, where is all this wealth of understanding and this wisdom? Where is it coming from? And that's the question they're going to ask you, and say, well, it comes from the Quran. It comes from the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So then we can start using that. But sometimes when I'm talking to non-Muslims, I don't want to get heavy into Allah said in the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said in the Hadith. Why? Because sometimes people hear that and they shut off, right? But when they're just listening to you speaking generically, okay, then all of a sudden they're like, wait a second, like I totally agree with what you're saying. You know what? Your words are speaking to me. Now I'm very interested. Okay, now I want to know, okay, where does this come now I'm ready to hear about this Islam thing you're talking about. And that's very it's a very important dawah technique to be kind of aware of, is that sometimes we do come on hot and heavy with the terminology and we lose people, and sometimes they just want to know, okay, what are you people about? So you as a convert, as somebody who's accepted Islam, when you're coming on and they're talking to them, they're like, okay, well, this is a person who talks like me, who has the same background as me. Why did you make that choice? And of course, and that opens conversations.
I was in a room on Friday. Was it Friday? No, Monday. I had a meeting with the school. I've never been there before, but it looks like I was in a room with a couple of Christians. And I have my hijab on, I'm fully covered and everything. And I didn't mention the Quran or anything like that. I just explained my story and all that, and they were so moved. And
Yes.
And everything that I was talking about was a lot of things excuse me, are in the Quran,
Yes.
and they're gonna let me be in their school. And they're like, it's the first time that anyone's ever called us and asked us to just do work in the school and volunteer and and stuff like that. So
Alhamdulillah.
I'm still learning. I was really nervous about actually doing it as a Muslim because I don't, like you said, the terminology, the verbiage, and things like that. And can I still do it and and have regular conversations with people? Because my mind is always going with things that are in Quran, but you can also make them, put it in layman's terms,
Yes.
so people can understand. But I'm just getting that after like a year and a half of taking a break from from doing it all. So,
MashaAllah.
yeah.
May Allah
Thank you
give
for
you
this.
success. And the only thing, you're welcome. And what I would tell you is, and you're in the right place because you're with Sister Layla, and she will take good care of you as she has done for
Alhamdulillah, she has.
so many people. And that's the most important thing. Is I always tell people, when you're in that type of an environment where you're going to be kind of put into kind of maybe unique circumstances, is just to have somebody to back you up, just to be able to say, you know what, to be able to go back to somebody and say, okay, I'm being offered this, or I have this opportunity. What do you think? And to be able to bounce that off of somebody who is Muslim, who can, again, then you can benefit from their guidance or from their knowledge. And this is what Allah told us in the Quran. So Allah says in the Quran, "Fas'alu ahla dhikri in kuntum la ta'lamun." Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. And so this is an important guide, and you see, like, all of the great Muslim scholars in history, that they always, they never strayed far from advisors. Nobody ever got to the point where, like, oh, I'm big enough, I don't need to worry about that. Even people like Imam Malik, someone who was known worldwide as the great scholar of Medina, that he would still go, and he still had his people, his advisors that were near to him, that he would go and say, hey, what do you think about this, and what's your thoughts? And that's very, very important, that we never lose that, and that we always ask Allah to surround us with righteous people that can help direct us in the best way.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And so now, coming back, and so we spent all this time talking about the importance of how to approach the Quran, that we look at the Quran as it's coming. This is a message to me. I don't ever look at the Quran as a message to somebody else, that I stop and I try to understand what I'm reading. And this is a point that I've made multiple times to people, especially for people who for whom the Arabic language, they're not fluent with it, or the recitation of the Quran is not fluent to them yet. And I say yet because it is our hope, and it is our objective, and our wish for every single one of us, that we get to that point. Okay, so we have to make that effort. Okay, but there's going to be a period of time. It might be a period of months, years, decades, whatever it has, for every individual, until they get to that point. So until you get to that point, what should be our goal in Ramadan? A lot of times people think, okay, well, they hear about the other people saying, as I've told you, oh, I finished the Quran, or I finished the Quran twice, or I finished the Quran 3 times, or whatever. And so sometimes you start to feel like, boy, everyone's so far ahead of me. Okay, and we forget that the race is with yourself. The race is not with somebody else. Okay, you can't compare two separate lives and two separate circumstances. So what should be our goal in Ramadan? The goal in Ramadan is to take from the Quran that which will get us to the next level. Okay, I want to make a change. I want to finish this Ramadan being a better person. How much better do I need to be? Well, certainly, if I could be 100% better, that's great, but that's pretty rare. That doesn't happen for most people. 1% better is enough. Okay, 1% is, and so if I'm just trying to get a couple of things out of my life that were dragging me down before Ramadan, that's all it takes. And so that's why I tell people, choose one surah from the Quran. Okay, it doesn't have to be a long surah. Maybe it's a surah that's only 1 page long. Maybe it's only 5 pages long. Maybe it's a surah that's 10 pages long. Maybe you're going to say, you know what, I'm just going to focus on this juz of the Quran, this 30 pages of the Quran. And that's going to be my focus for, the 30th of the Quran, I'm sorry, which is about 20 pages in the Arabic, that's going to be my focus for Ramadan. And so if that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, the goal is that we take from the Quran that which benefits us. So don't get wrapped up in the race that other people are having, where they might be reading a lot, okay, but they're not getting anything. So be the person that says, you know what, hey, I only read this much, but alhamdulillah, I came out and I've already added this to my collection. So for those of you that like to play games, or maybe you have kids that play video games, there's all these games where you collect a sword, or collect a book, or collect a hat, or a piece of armor, or something like that. So that's the way we should be going through the Quran, is that, okay, I want to collect something that I can then hold on to, something that I'm going to wear, something that's going to be part of me after Ramadan is over, and then this becomes my habit. So it doesn't have to be a lot, and that's something important to kind of reflect on. So I didn't want to talk too much more. Then again, I want to give a very simple message and something that you won't forget. So I'm going to stop with that. But inshallah, I did promise that if you guys have any questions, I would try my best to answer them, inshallah. And the questions can be on Ramadan as a whole, or on other parts of the Quran, or if it's something that I can't answer, I'll tell you.